About the same time that I caught my first bass at age 10 or 11, I painted this old metal tackle box, labeled it for arrowheads, and my dad and I would put our collection in here. We had a big garden in New Jersey. Every time Dad rototilled his garden or the farmer plowed his field, we would go there and hunt for arrowheads. That was the nice thing about New Jersey. Most of the points that we found there were almost in pristine condition. In this video, I'm not going to show you all the arrowheads, just a couple of nice Jersey points that we did find. They were always intact, not chipped or damaged, although we did find a lot of pieces as well. He taught me how to keep my eye out for dark flint pieces, so they were relatively pretty easy to spot. They were all different sizes, small, medium, large, some spearhead looking points. This is one of my favorites. Almost all of them were created by the tribe called the Lenape Indians. This was in northwest New Jersey. This video is not made to highlight my collection, but to show you the new direction that it's taken. Now I'm living in Pennsylvania. It's 60 years later than finding all these with my dad. This is actually the smallest point in my collection. I'm sure you remember these from your childhood in school. Our first introduction to minerals. Some say the first Native Americans were here 13,000 to 15,000 years ago. I moved here to Pennsylvania about 40 years ago. And this box, tackle box, was actually in my basement from house to house to house, and I very seldom even opened it up. But now things have changed. I retired about 5 years ago, and I've since taken up this old hobby. These are some of my Pennsylvania finds within the last 3 years. So we moved to Schwanksville, which is along the Perkiomen Creek. That's where I hunt primarily in the gravel beds along the creek. So most of these points are kind of worn down, chipped, broken. Very seldom do you find them in pristine condition like we used to up in New Jersey. They come in all shapes and sizes. These are all from the Perkiomen as well. But what I want to talk about today is something that I'm actually new to, is the tools that the Native Americans used to create all these arrowheads, and how they created these tools and how they work. You know, stone tools are actually the oldest surviving tool made by humans and our ancestors. The aspect of looking for stone tools is new to me. I just started doing that within the last 2 years. Many of these that you see here, I actually found within the last couple months. You know, one of the most common tools I seem to find are scrapers. They're working tools to help clean animal hides, butcher animals' flesh, and process plant material. They could be single-sided or double-sided. This one here, it's got a thumb indent, and a very sharp edge on it. This is a nice piece. They're pretty common. You'll find them if you know what you're looking for. Little Jasper scraper. Very sharp edge. This one is kind of concave a little bit. It's got a finger groove in it. Again, very sharp edge. A couple of scrapers I found are classified as turtle scrapers. One side is humped, such as this, and the other side is flat. This one has been worked. Had a pretty sharp edge on it at one time. This, I believe, is another turtle scraper. I believe this is actually called a spokeshave or spokeshave. It's a scraper that has a concave scraping edge on it. I don't know if you could see it. Nice piece. I picked up this piece earlier in the week, and you can see how it's been worked into a sharp edge here, but I picked it up because of the color of it. And it wasn't until I got home that I realized it's got a finger indent here, it's got a palm grip here, and it was actually held very comfortably in their hand, such as this, and used to scrape. Now the coloring could be oil from the animals that they were removing the hide from or scraping the fat off of. Sometimes you'll find hand tools that are darkened and they say it's from the oil in the Indians' hands. But this piece was very unusual. Fits very good in your hand. This piece is called a netting stone. I've never found one before. It actually has a hole through it. And you can see that hole's been worked. I don't know if we could zoom in on that. This was used by the Indians to secure the bottom of their nets going across creeks. It weighed it down. Pretty cool piece. Might make a necklace out of this one. Here's another scraper. When you're looking for arrowheads, it's always good to look for thin pieces. This one looks like it's been worked pretty good. Very thin, very sharp. This is called a blade. Sharp on both edges. Blades are generally twice as long as they are wide. Also used for scraping. I think I have another one here too. Yeah, this one here. I don't know if I can focus in on it. I don't know what's happening here, but this has also been worked. Nice blade. This is another very thin blade. I don't know what's happening with the focus, but surprised it hasn't been broken. And here too is another flat blade. Very sharp piece. A lot of the pieces that I originally collected as heart rocks with my granddaughter are now turning out to be ancient Indian tools. This actually was a scraper of sorts. They'd run a shaft of a twig through it to soften up the arrow, take off the bark of the arrow shaft. This one's pitted. It's got some nice grooves in it. It's easy to handle. As well as a similar piece here. And here's almost an identical piece. Same thing. Used for making arrow shafts. Here's another scraper. You can see it's been napped, which means it's been chiseled off the sides to make it sharp. We used to call it chiseling, but I'm learning the correct term is napping. These hand tools is a whole new realm for me. Since I wasn't finding any decent arrowheads intact, I started searching for the tools made to create the arrowheads. This one's kind of cool. Looks like a blade. Very sharp. Here's another blade. This is actually shaped like a knife. It's definitely been worked. Has an effigy on the end of it. Could be a bird. I think this was actually a weapon to hold in your hand. Not to stab. Indians didn't stab. They would puncture the skull of an opponent. Pretty rare find, I think. This is a pretty cool blade or scraper. It's definitely been worked many times. Very sharp on both sides. Sharp on the end. I wasn't sure what this was when I picked it up. It's looks like it's been worked. Kind of flat on the top. I don't know what's happening with my focus here. But I saved it. Keep in mind, these are all recent finds. This is an unusual piece too. It's kind of curved. It's got like a red dye on it. I'm thinking it's a piece of pottery. No sharp edges. I picked up this piece because it's been rounded. It's almost like a chisel, based on the fact that it's square on the top and it has a blade on it. They could have used it for scraping or chopping a little wood. Well, I hope I'm not boring you, but these are some of the bigger finds I found within the last couple weeks. I believe this find was used for flint napping, making arrowheads, chipping off the sides of the flint or the chert. It's highly polished. It's a heavy stone. It's one of my favorite finds this year. Not sure what this is. I'm not sure if it was created by Indians. I think it might have been. It looks like there's some napping going on inside. I don't know what it was used for, but it was worth hanging on to. We're going to go outside. I believe this is a little grinding ball. I'll show you the grinder outside. This is a bowl stone and a grinder. It's flat on the bottom, although we had some recent rain here. And there's a little round grinder. And a recent find here. This is a pestle. It's used for crunching, grinding, breaking nuts. It's been worked on the back. Definitely going to look for more of these in a Perkiomen. Pretty cool find. Oh, we're down to my last 6 pieces. I picked this piece up recently. The term I just learned is called Hafted, which means this was secured on a piece of wood, such as this. It's called Hafted. This is actually a hammerhead, or an axe head. You can see the workings here is very sharp. And it's grooved on the top, and it's grooved on the bottom, which indicates that it was haft, such as this. This I just found last week. It's notched on the top, notched on the bottom right here. I don't know if you can see it. This is a haft piece. It's another hammerhead. You can see how it's been cut down to slope towards the front. The point looks like it might be broken off. A lot of work put into making this piece. Pretty cool find. I think my granddaughter found this piece as a potential heart piece, heartstone. But it's an old tool. Let me show you how. It's kind of hard to do with two hands, or one hand holding the camera. There's a thumb indent here, a finger groove on the top. Let me put it in my right hand so you can see how this would have worked. So right in the middle, right here, there's a big thumb groove. The top is flattened off. The rest of this finger, it's curved to fit into the palm of your hand. And this was used as a hand tool. What they used it for, I don't know. Maybe for digging something. It's a pretty cool piece when you take a look at how it's been worked. Hey, another recent find is another hafted piece. It was attached to a stick or a piece of wood. It's rounded on this end and very sharp on this end. There's a hammerhead or an axe head. Pretty cool piece. Here's one more piece. I've had it for a couple months. It was like a heart-shaped rock, so we picked it up. We were going to paint it, but upon closer examination, I found out it's like one of the better pieces in my collection. Let me show you how this works. There's actually a definitive thumb indent, and it's flattened out on the top to put your other finger. Keep in mind, these tools are made to fit firmly in your hand. The cool thing about this, I don't know if I can show you, is the other side is actually grooved for your fingers as well. And your little pinky wraps around that knob, which secures it totally in your hand. You can't pull this out of my hand. This thing weighs about 3 pounds. It's definitely a tool. It's rounded on the point. It's got some staining, which is pretty cool. Definitely going to look for more of these on the Perkiomen Creek. This by far is one of my favorite new pieces. It's got thumb indents, finger indents. I picked it up just because of its unusual shape. It's rounded on the top end. But let me show you how it fits in your hand. That's a thumbprint. Your palm fits into this other cutout like this. When you turn it over, your other finger fits here, and the rest of your 3 fingers fit here. This is called a knapping tool. In order to make projectile points, to chip the flint off of other tools. It's got a rounded head on it. Fits so good in the palm of your hand. Awesome, awesome piece. One of my favorites. Well, that's a wrap. I hope you learned something about ancient stone artifacts. Thanks for watching. And thank you, Dad, for instilling your faith in me and teaching me how to keep my eyes open, my ears open, and my heart open to the great outdoors that surrounds us.